What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 697 of the Smark Madness Smack Talk Hot Tags of the Week. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango, flying solo for this edition, but I am so thankful to have you here. So before we even get into anything, I always want to remind everybody I'm going to be talking, but I want to know what you have to say as well about all these topics that I'm going to be breaking down. So drop your thoughts in the comments section below, or if you're listening to us outside of YouTube, then there are plenty of different ways for you to voice your opinions. One of them being our Discord server. Go ahead and check that out if you are into Discord. I'm getting more and more into that lately, especially now that we are recording the podcasts on there, seemingly going forward. That's, it's still not 100%, but seems like that's going to be the case. Of course, I'm not bothering to do that right now because I can record directly through my computer as it is, but I want to do more with Discord, and I want to involve everybody else more through there. So if you listen to this and you think that you would be interested in that, hop on over to Discord. Of course, if you're on Facebook, Twitter, or any of the other kind of things, and leave a comment or do whatever it is that you would do over there. And of course, if you are on YouTube, make sure that you show your support in all the different ways you can. Hit the like button, subscribe, ring that notification bell, press that thanks button, and toss a little spare change our way. I don't know why it sounded like I said DOS instead of toss, but it came out weird. Toss a little spare change our way and click on the join button, give you access to the YouTube channel membership subscription service thing. So that is the same thing as the Patreon, just if you like one or the other, or if you want to do both. I mean, you can double up. Redbubble and TeePublic, you can pick up merchandise. Keep all that stuff in mind. It goes a long way in helping us continue to do this podcast, and as far as like motivation goes and everything along with that too. So hot tag wise for this week, I actually started out thinking, I've got nothing to talk about. Nothing's really been going on. And then the more that I started to just go through the list of things that have happened this week, the more I'm like, all right, we actually do have a decent amount of things to talk about. Some of them not the biggest and most important things in the world. Some of them things that I had already talked about on some other different methods, like, news reports and things on like the question of the day for the wrestling news or something like that. So I'm going to repeat myself in some ways, but I have a different opinion about some other things too. Now some other things had happened, and that's what we're going to do. So, the score, we're just going to bounce around here. One of them being that WWE filed a trademark for SnackDown. Now, we do snack talk every once in a while on here where we just start going off on different food tangents. It seems like SnackDown could be any number of different things, but I am assuming that this is going to be some kind of promotional tie-in thing. And it seems like, they've done those things here and there before, and some of them work out, some of them don't. I've never tried their revamped idea of doing the ice cream bars, because it didn't seem like it was the same ice cream bars as what I had as a kid, and I actually couldn't find them anywhere when they were doing that. But this is a partnership with Drumstick for a summer snack down, and it says in typical fashion for the trademark, like candy bars, frozen foods, I should say, cookies, pastries, candy, all that other kind of stuff. So it seems like they are just trademarking it as far as like, well, we could do any kind of tie-in promotional thing between WWE and the Drumstick brand and they've got popcorn and donuts and pizza and all sorts of different things in here. I don't think Drumstick does anything other than ice cream and ice cream bars and stuff, but maybe I'm wrong, especially because it's like, you start looking into companies that are owned by other companies and everything, and then it's like, oh, did you know that like Pepsi owns KFC, and and they also own Taco Bell and blah blah blah. So I'm assuming this is just going to apply to everything like that. We don't have any, or at least I haven't seen anything as far as like, okay, this is a promotional thing going on. But if it's a WWE related thing and it looks tasty, then I'll probably try it if I can find it. If it doesn't look tasty, then I'm probably not going to try it, or if I can't find it or anything along those lines. So SnackDown is just one of those little side topics that I figured, hey, look, keep an eye out for that. It might be something fun in the future. It might be something that we call back to. And, I don't know. Maybe I'll eat something on the air or something. I don't know. I we'll talk about SmackDown, I should say. But I want to switch over a little bit and talk about the Smark Madness Tournament, as far as like SnackDown and Smark and Smack Talk and Smark at Moment and all that. I like to play around with those words and those names and stuff, so that's why you get Smark Madness. And the tournament is now officially over now that I have shut off the poll, as far as, 3 minutes ago when I did this. And now we know who you voted for as John Cena's greatest rival of all time. This came down to a triple threat, and it was between Randy Orton, The Rock, and CM Punk for your options for the finals. And a pretty overwhelming score was just Randy Orton with 62.5% of the vote. Anybody's curious, CM Punk got 31.3% and The Rock got 6.3%. So overwhelmingly, Randy Orton picked as John Cena's best rival. And then CM Punk number 2, The Rock number 3. This was also reflected in the tiebreaker, which was to rank the 3 options in order, just in case there would have been a thing where it's like, oh, look at that, it's really, really close, and more people voted for, if it would have been a total tie, for instance, between like Randy Orton and CM Punk, and then more people would have voted that CM Punk was their first choice, then that would have put him over the edge. Of course, it wasn't even close to any kind of a tie. And the poll reflected that as well with the tiebreaker. Overwhelmingly, The Rock being people's third choice, and then the second choice, for the most part, being CM Punk, and Randy Orton being people's first choice. So pretty definitively, Randy Orton chosen as the best rival for John Cena of all time. And then I had also added an extra vote for Cody Rhodes, just in case anybody's really digging this feud so much that they would assume that he would also be in the running for that, if not overcome those other 3. So the question was, do you think that Cody Rhodes will end up going down as John Cena's greatest rival, even above the options that were in this tournament? The breakdown for that was 50% exactly voted most likely no, but I can't judge yet. The second most votes went to definitely no, then possibly yes, but I can't judge yet, and then with only 6.3%, definitely yes. So that skews in one direction 100%. Technically not 100%, but you know what I mean. It definitely skews in a direction of people saying probably not, but there's not, an ability to vote on that yet. And then more people saying, yeah, but I'd be more comfortable saying most likely not, rather than to lean more towards most likely yes. So it might not be an indicator of anything, or it might be an indicator that maybe this feud isn't necessarily working for a lot of people. I personally am enjoying this feud quite a bit, but I do find it difficult to jump to that conclusion. We haven't even seen them have a single match together. I mean, we've seen them have a match, years and years and years ago. But as far as like this incarnation, we haven't seen heel John Cena against Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare. And they could have amazing chemistry, or they could have terrible chemistry. The back and forth promos have been very good, but I don't know if I could say, okay, well, just on the strength of a few promos, I think he will go down in history as being better than Randy Orton or CM Punk or The Rock or whatever it is. So I ended up voting for most likely no, but can't judge, which ended up being the one that people voted on most. So kind of fits the bill when it comes to that. So that's the tournament. I mean, not the craziest tournament, not like, super big surprises happening along the way. But then again, some tournaments are rather straightforward. Some of them surprise the hell out of me, and some of them I can probably write up ahead of time the results and then just, double check, and then that's about it. But thank you for the people that voted on this year's tournament. I don't have any idea, of course, if we are going to have any more tournaments this year, and if they are, what they're going to be or anything. I don't think I even did the Heat of the Moment tournament or the Champs Giving tournament last year. They just haven't been something that I've been the biggest fan of, to be perfectly honest. There's not been the most amount of people participating in them compared to when we were doing like the Sexiest Superstars tournament. We would get so many more people. Can't really do that anymore. And I know that people are not as interested in some of the other things too. Didn't really feel the heat of the moment thing. It just wasn't really working out for me. So at the very least, I'm almost 100% positive that that is not returning. Maybe something around Champsgiving. I don't know. But then again, I don't know what tomorrow has in store. Everything is crazy nowadays. And I don't like that. Speaking of crazy, here's a hot tag for me to throw out there. This is what happens when you, I saw a great phrase of when you elect a clown, expect a circus. This is WWE tangent with Linda McMahon. She doesn't even know what AI is and kept calling it A1, like the steak sauce. I don't know why the hell you guys people vote. Some of you people voted this direction. I'm not going to get too deep into politics here and stuff, but for fuck's sake, sanity needs to win out at some point. And Linda McMahon should not be. As a human being, I can speak to this. As a pro wrestling fan, I can speak to this. And as somebody with an education degree, should not be in this position. And it's fucking absurd. So I don't even like A1 steak sauce. Let's put it that way. Absolutely fucking absurd. And I hate it. I hate that we're on this timeline. And this all goes back to Brock Lesnar shouldn't have beaten The Undertaker at WrestleMania. I'm sure we would be on a much better timeline if that wouldn't have happened. Anyway, I got that out of the way. That's something I wanted to mention just because you should be aware of how batshit fucking stupid some of this shit is that's happening in the world. But let's move on to another story here. Although this is something that I hate having to talk about because we not only don't know what the future has in store, but it's just a really awful thing to be talking about to begin with. It's not just, the politics stuff, but Kevin Owens. We did not get a chance to talk about this yet because this was something that happened on SmackDown and we recorded the hot tags before SmackDown. So, we didn't get an opportunity to talk about it then or anything immediately afterward. Of course, after I say on the hot tags of like, if anything really big and important happens, then maybe we'll do some kind of a special thing. Well, Kevin Owens has been pulled from WrestleMania and now the story's a week old. So everybody knows. He is going to have to undergo neck surgery, and nobody knows what that means for his future. He could be in the lucky camp of somebody who had neck surgery and, Edge was able to return, Sheamus was able to return, Ivar, it does happen. And then there's people like Big E who doesn't seem like he's going to be able to return, and maybe ever. And then plenty of other people are in that camp. And of course, the first thing that I think of is, man, I really hope he's healthy. I really hope he gets this sorted out and he heals up and everything's perfectly fine and all that. For the man himself, more than the wrestler, because, he's got all these decades left that I want him to be not having pain and being able to do normal things and all that stuff. Now, the secondary thing is, of course, I want to make sure that he steps back into the ring because Kevin Owens is one of my favorites of all time. And I think that it would really suck if we don't get to see him continue to wrestle and have more matches with more people and win more championships and everything. I have been seeing some people say, well, it would be kind of fitting for it to be that his last match was against Sami Zayn in Canada. And that is something that, it's not serendipitous in the sense that that's, I'm sure, what he would want because he wouldn't have wanted his career to go in this direction right now immediately. But it is at least something where there's like a full circle moment to it. He comes onto the scene in WWE and very quickly it's, the feud with Sami Zayn and the powerbomb on the apron and everything. And then for that to happen in Canada, that could end up being one of those things where if, God forbid this doesn't happen, I hope not. If he has to hang up his boots, that's so much better to have had a last match like that than for it to have been like, I don't know, Kevin Owens was in a squash against I don't know, Birdo on SmackDown, or a live event, something or other that, like, means nothing in the grand scheme of things. The only reason I picked Birdo there is because I'm looking at the screen right now where he's going to fight Rey Fenix tonight. So I hope we get some good news from Kevin Owens very soon, and hopefully this is not the end of his career. Of course, we will address that if we hear any more news or anything along those lines. I'm not jumping straight to that it's a guarantee. You got to try to be a little bit hopeful at least. Now, that does bring up another question, though. What does WWE do with Randy Orton? And it seems like at least they're teasing the possibility that Randy Orton could go up against Nick Aldis, because they had this thing. They announced this whole Kevin Owens injury and that he's not going to be at WrestleMania and everything. And then Orton takes out Aldis with an RKO. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, okay, well, then that means that Nick Aldis is going to step into the ring or anything along those lines. It could be Orton just did that because, well, screw you. What do you mean I don't have a match at WrestleMania? It could be that Aldis picks somebody to wrestle on his behalf or sets up some other kind of a match with somebody like an Aleister Black or Miro or whatever. So here's my thought process. If I'm WWE, and I'm approaching this, of course, without knowing information. Like, WWE knows if they have those guys locked down. They know if they have a plan. They know all this other information that we are not privy to. So in a week, or even later on today, after, happens on SmackDown, it might seem blatantly obvious. It might be like, oh, okay, well, they were clearly going to go in the direction of Aleister Black or something. Or, well, they didn't have somebody ready to go, so that's why they decided to throw Solo Sikoa in there. Whatever it might be. We don't know. But working with what I know and what context we have and everything, my favorite scenario here is the Nick Aldis scenario for a couple different reasons. One being, I'm just more interested in seeing him wrestle his first WWE match than seeing somebody else fill in that spot. I also think that would be a hell of a way to do it, is he wrestles his first match and it's at WrestleMania. Like, that's pretty damn cool, Number three, I guess it would technically be, he's already done something to him. So Aldis can be like, look, I'm supposed to be here to be the general manager, but you put your hands on me, and once in a while you have to roll up your sleeves and say, fuck you, I'm going to beat your ass. I like that idea way more than anything else that I've seen. Other people are pitching things that I'm not the biggest fan of, like the Solo Sikoa idea. I think it's crazy that Solo is not doing anything at WrestleMania. That's absurd to me that they spent the entire year building this guy as the biggest heel in the company, and he's not even going to be at all on the card. Fucking crazy. I don't think Rey Fenix is a good choice for that. I like Phoenix. He's cool. But I don't see what the point of that necessarily is. So if it's not going to be Nick Aldis, and it's not going to be like some other, I don't know, some other person that we, Hammerstone or, somebody along those lines, then I think the best thing is to have some kind of an open challenge. And it's like, okay, well, you're going to have a match at WrestleMania, but I'm going to figure out an opponent for you. And for that to be either Miro or Aleister Black. That way you get the big buzz of like, who is it going to be? And you get people interested in along those lines. The talking point on the 3 fucking hour pre-show that WrestleMania is going to have, which is insane. And I do not understand why they need to do that for both nights. 6 hours worth of just talking about the matches that are going to happen just on that night. Oh my God, the amount of ads and crap that WrestleMania is, it's going to be exhausting as all hell. But I think that the talking point there becomes, the mystery opponent and everything. And then you get the buzz of like, oh, who is this? Oh, it's Aleister Black, or oh, it's Miro or something. I think that works better than if they just go like, and you know what? You're going to face Tama Tonga or something, I mean, if that's the case and they end up having nothing for Randy Orton to do, then maybe put some of the other people on the card instead of Randy Orton, because it seems like we're not going to get either of the women's mid-card champions defending their titles. It seems like we're not going to get the Street Profits versus Motor City Machine Guns. Maybe put them on the card instead, That is what it is, though. So that's something that later on tonight, we're probably going to find out some more information about that. So going back to SmackDown a little bit and talking about some stuff that's setting up what we got for tonight as well. They did have Motor City Machine Guns earn a tag team title opportunity. It seems like that's going to be happening on the SmackDown prior to WrestleMania rather than WrestleMania itself, because they went out of their way to not call that a WrestleMania match. Whereas some of the other matches like Jade Cargill and Naomi or the women's tag team gauntlet, we'll get to that in a second, they specifically did say that. So I am assuming that the tag team titles are going to be on SmackDown, and I still am waiting for that announcement of the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Still want to make sure that they do that. It's disappointing if they don't. I think that that's a match that, I think it's a match that should happen during the pre-show WrestleMania, but then again, I'm also the guy that thinks that you should have a women's equivalent of that too and everything else like that. So the gauntlet match for the tag team titles on the women's division is something that I was like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. And then I looked at the group of people that were involved and I was like, this is not shaping up well at all. And I'll be perfectly honest, I don't care who wins this because I think it's going to be a waste of a spot at WrestleMania anyway. Right now, the people that are listed as part of this gauntlet are Kaden Carter and Katana Chance, which, look, any of these girls I'm going to name, these women are talented and I like them to varying degrees, but you cannot tell me that Casey and Casey have any momentum right now and that that's going to be a drawing match for WrestleMania. Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez are, well, I'll say Liv Morgan is. Raquel is her side character. Liv Morgan is a draw for people to want to watch at WrestleMania. You put them against Casey and Casey, that's a bathroom break for most people. Same thing when it comes to Pure Fusion Collective. Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark haven't been doing fuck all. Even when Sonya Deville was still around, they still weren't really doing all that much. They had a surprisingly decent showing during the Royal Rumble, and then that's when everything went to hell. So they're not going to win. BFAP and Michin, I don't see the point in them winning either. Maxine Dupree and Natalia, a tag team that didn't even exist beforehand. And again, I'm not seeing people clamoring for that. So it really comes down to the Secret Hervis, Beth Fire and Piper Niven, or Bailey and Lyra Valkyria, which points to me that it's Bailey and Lyra Valkyria, which then also goes, okay, well, the Women's Intercontinental Championship is not worthwhile to put at WrestleMania. Also, where is Chelsea Green? Chelsea is, like, if I would prioritize anybody, I would say Liv Morgan needs to be at WrestleMania and Chelsea needs to be at WrestleMania. And then Liv Morgan and Chelsea's opponents could be any number of different people, but like Lyra Valkyria should be defending the Women's Intercontinental title, or, you know, they should be doing something else and whatever. And I would think quantity over quality if you can't get a quality option here. So I would be like, all right, well, why don't we throw more people in there instead of just saying like, okay, there's one set of challengers. I'm assuming it's Bailey and Lyra, and I do not understand why that's on this card. I don't know. Disagree with me all you want. Go ahead and leave a comment below. To me, this is not worthwhile. And this is exactly the type of match that I would be like, this should be on Raw or SmackDown, not Street Profits versus Motor City Machine Guns. So I'm assuming that that's going to happen on SmackDown. Let's backtrack and talk about some other stuff that have happened. One of them being the stuff on Monday Night Raw. Now, Raw, if we go back to April 7th, a couple interesting things that happened there. We had some confirmation of some matches from WrestleMania and stuff. Of course, we know that now. It's really nothing all that shocking to talk about. You know, Rhea Ripley is going to be in the triple threat match at WrestleMania. There's going to be a fatal four-way for the Intercontinental title for Dominic Mysterio, Finn Balor, Penta, and Braun Breaker. Very cool spear from Braun Breaker. I like that. If you didn't see already that spear to Carlito, go ahead and check that out. We got confirmation of El Grande Americano against Rey Mysterio. That is a match that definitely should just be on Raw, in my mind. It's not even like a mask match or anything along those lines. It's just two people having a match in a feud that really doesn't deserve to be a WrestleMania in my mind. Was this the episode with that Tony Hinchcliffe guy? Yeah, fuck that guy. What else do we have? Karrion Kross interrupted AJ Styles. We already know what that's kind of going. New Day won their match against the War Raiders by disqualification, and that just drug out the story extra little bit longer. They might get a match at WrestleMania, which I honestly don't think that really deserves to be a match at WrestleMania either. Love the New Day. War Raiders are fucking cool, but this is something that they just sort of rushed in the last 2 weeks, and I don't know, it just doesn't. You don't do a match like that and then just go, we'll do it again, but this time it'll be on the actual show. Then don't even do it on Raw. Then just do the match at WrestleMania. Set it up ahead of time better. Do something with a story, you know? So I didn't really like that. And it's pretty interesting the way that Raw ended with the thing with Seth Rollins saying that now Paul Heyman owes him a favor. So, of course, we will talk about WrestleMania predictions when we get into the WrestleMania predictions podcast. But generally speaking, right now, I'm kind of thinking, you know what? Maybe there is something to the idea of Seth Rollins winning this match. I still think that's going to be CM Punk, but I might change my mind. That's it for Raw. On the NXT side of things, we got some pretty interesting things as well. Sol Ruka and Izzy Dame qualified for the Women's North American Championship ladder match at Stand and Deliver. Stephanie Vicker picked all of her potential opponents of Jordynne Grace, Jada Parker, and a returning Julia to be her challengers for Stand and Deliver, which then makes me wonder why Julia needed to lose that title to begin with. If she was not injured and she didn't even leave the country and have any kind of visa issues, why did she need to drop the belt? And why did Vicker need to be a double champion for a week and a half or whatever, and then drop the title and then set up a new Women's North American champion? This all seems like something crazy happened, and we might not ever get a clarification of why and how this all went down, but I'm very curious because if they booked this just because they were like, this is the most interesting thing we can book this way, that's insane. And I don't understand it. And if it's because of some other kind of thing, maybe they thought that Julie was injured and it turned out that it was like, okay, well, now we jumped the gun and she's not actually injured and actually she's ready to go. Or maybe it was like, well, we're going to be having this visa issue and we really don't want to be stuck with that kind of a problem. So let's take the title off of her. But the visa stuff got clarified or something. Like maybe it's something like that. I don't know. I still would like to know, but I think that at this point, Julia could win the title back, or Vicker is going to retain. I don't think that there's much of a chance that Grace wins the championship through this method, and I don't think that there's any chance whatsoever that Jada Parker does. I think Jada Parker's taking the pin from Vicker or Julia. Again, we'll talk about this a little bit more in depth when we talk about our actual predictions for this on most likely Tuesday night. It's probably going to be Rob and I just doing that after NXT, but we'll see. Swipe Right popped up. I don't really pay a whole lot of attention to Evolve, to be perfectly honest. There's just too much wrestling to go through, and I am not particularly engaged with a lot of the characters that are on that show, but Swipe Right, they seem like they've got some talent, so it's cool to see them on the show. And Street Profits popped up and everything. We have a tag team gauntlet for the men's division in NXT next week on the Tuesday's episode of NXT that will determine who fights Fraxium at the pay-per-view. That is made up of a group of people that I'm like, I don't really know who would make any sense for that. So they're kind of setting up Hank and Tank, and I don't think that they're necessarily the best options for that. But then again, when I look at the rest of the other teams, Fraxium's also beaten all of them, so I don't think that the tag team division in NXT is particularly great right now, and I'd love to see some other team come and step up and do that instead. But again, we'll talk about the byproduct of the NXT episode when we get around to it. There's also going to be a fatal 4-way number 1 contenders match between Lexis King, Ethan Page, and Wes Lee. And God, who was the other one? I'm blanking on the other person now. Oh my God, who was that other person? It was, Lexis King came out. Wes Lee came out. Somebody in between those two. Now I got to look it up. This is crazy. Eddie Thorpe was the other one. Okay. Those 4 are going to fight on NXT to determine who gets a shot at the North American Championship for Ricky Saints. Sean Spears, not in the mix at all. He's just like, all right, well, oh well. And the culling is now focused on the tag team thing, and Izzy Dame is still focused on, the ladder match and all. So I thought it was pretty interesting that, for instance, they did something like the very end of this episode was Channing Stax Lorenzo challenging Dark State to, I guess, what's basically going to be like a street fight in the parking lot. And that's going to be on NXT rather than at the pay-per-view. So maybe it transitions into a pay-per-view match or something. Maybe not. I don't know. They're kind of stacked already as it is. I'm very curious as well about the rest of the spots in the ladder match, because there are 2 spots left. And this is the weird thing that happened. If you didn't watch NXT, so a group of women talked to Ava backstage and assume that there's going to be a last chance qualifier. She says no, but looking around, she has an idea. Now, the group of people that were there were the Meta Girls, Lash Legend, and Jakar Jackson. Now, Lash Legend lost a qualifier. Jakar Jackson didn't get into one. There's Roxanne Perez, who lost a qualifier. And then there's the 3 members of Fatal Influence. Jasmine Nix lost her qualifier to Sol Ruka. And Fallon Henley and JC Jane didn't get a qualifier. A lot of people saying online, oh, it's going to be a 6-woman tag. Well, that makes it so the 3 women that would win would fill 2 spots? It doesn't make any sense. Oh, well, you can't just have that. Okay, well then, you do like a 6-pack challenge or something. Okay, but that would determine one person. Who's the other person? And WWE went out of their way to have it be like Ava saying, I've got an idea, but not saying what it is, and then announcing, we'll figure it out. So I don't think that they know what they're going to do. And I was thinking like, oh, maybe they do a battle royal, or maybe they do any kind of number of other things with this group of 6 women. But that doesn't even include Ren Sinclair, who lost her qualifier to Izzy Dame. So none of this makes any sense to me. And I don't think that WWE necessarily has a great plan in mind, but they might have something where they might just go like, okay, well, there's going to be a 6-woman tag, and there's going to be a 2-1-2-1-2 thing, or I don't know. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think, because to me, this just seems like it's a situation that they've booked themselves into a corner that they're not necessarily figuring out a way out of. And we got AEW stuff, so we're already just cruising along here. Pac is injured. That sucks. Doesn't seem like he's going to be out too long, so that's good, but it always sucks when anybody gets injured. Cope is out indefinitely. I don't know if that means that he's necessarily like injured again and that's why he's out, or if this is just to, reset things a little bit because they don't necessarily have something in mind for him, so take some time off. And Hook was vomiting on the show, so the Ops and, the Death Riders and all that didn't really work out super well for these guys on this past episode. Seems like that we are going to get some kind of a not 6-man tag, they call it trios there. Trios titles match. Hopefully Hook is not sick and dealing with that. Hopefully Pac is able to wrestle that, or they figure out some other kind of stand-in or whatever. Haven't heard much about Cope, so hopefully he's back soon enough as it is. We also got some stuff for new switches for some factions and everything. And it's probably going to be my last hot tag. Yeah, I think there's not really anything else. Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre was made official. Everybody knows that was going to happen for Mania anyway. So the faction stuff for AEW, I thought it was pretty interesting. Learning Tree have a segment, and Chris Jericho, he does this little bit where he's saying, like, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed, and for Big Bill and for Brian Keith to fix that. And in the meantime, he's going to go away for a little bit. Turns out that that's because it's a Fozzy tour, so this is the way of writing him off for that. I don't know where that's going to go in the future, but I'm assuming that that means that Big Bill and Brian Keith are just going to be doing their own little thing for a while, and hey, we don't have a thing for Jericho, so let's just write him off TV in that capacity. They could have done better. They could have done worse. It is what it is. I ultimately don't really care. I'm more interested in the other factions, and I was actually kind of thinking this could be a good enough time for the Learning Tree to just completely split. So I'm interested with the fact that they didn't necessarily do that. But there's more confirmation about what the Paragon trademark is in AEW. We talked about that in January, I think is when they had announced that trademark. It's going to be the Undisputed Era. Kyle O'Reilly, Roderick Strong, and Adam Cole had a backstage segment, and they referred to themselves as the Paragon and said, and that is undisputed. Of course, you can't call yourself the Undisputed Era, and they are missing Bobby Fish, but WWE wouldn't allow them to use that trademark. And I guess they decided to not use the Undisputed Kingdom thing because the Kingdom's not involved. We haven't seen them in a while. So, Paragon. It's boring. This is the same as Pinnacle. It's the same as, do more than just go on like rhymezone.com or thesaurus.com or something and just type out like Zenith and just go, well, we got to name ourselves something that means that we're great. Paragon. It doesn't roll off the tongue. It's generic as all hell. They should have thought of something better than this. So I'm not a fan of it. And yeah, they could have thought of worse things. It could have been Adam Cole and the Funky Bunch or some kind of bullshit like that. But Paragon, let's put it this way. Maybe I'm wrong. I've been wrong about other things. But I'm going to put out a prediction right now that in 5 years, I don't think people are going to be talking about, oh man, Paragon is one of the best factions of all time. Don't you just love Paragon? They're going to still call those guys the Undisputed Era. The last hot tag for me to talk about is that the Don Callis family is seeking new recruits. There was a segment backstage where Don Callis was with Konosuke Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher and basically said, well, I can't depend on Brian Cage and Lance Archer anymore. Lance Archer lost to Brody King. Brian Cage is injured. Mark Davis, I think, is injured. So we're not really a healthy stable right now. These two dudes are doing great, but we need more people. And that has not, of course, turned into anything yet because nothing else is aired. Maybe we get some kind of stuff on Collision about that. I don't know. I don't watch Collision. But my first thoughts were, if Hammerstone doesn't go to WWE, he would be a great fit for this. I wish that AEW would pick up Jeff Cobb, and I think that he would be a good fit for that. I thought about maybe Daniel Garcia because it seems like he's kind of directionless in some capacity. I don't think that that's going to be the best option for him, but, maybe it could work. I could see a number of people potentially being recast into this sort of role. And some people are like, maybe it's a Ring of Honor guy that I don't really know. That would be a perfect fit. I don't know who I don't know. So can't really speak to those people. But a lot of people strike me as not being great options for this because I look at it as you want to bring somebody on to this group or into this group, I should say, that serves a purpose that the others don't have. And I wouldn't take Fletcher and Takeshita, two guys that are in that like young, we're pushing them in that upper mid card kind of role. I wouldn't put a Kevin Knight in there because then that's kind of cut them out from underneath. I would look to put somebody more like a Dijak or a Von Wagner, or what about Baron Corbin? Like, I think that they need muscle in this group. So whether it's Dijak, Von Wagner, Baron Corbin, Bishop Dyer is what he goes by now, Jeff Cobb, Hammerstone. I'd pick two of those guys. And I think that they could do a lot of good stuff underneath Don Callis that way. Let me know what you think, though. Let me know what your ideas are and anything else that you want to talk about. Make sure that you check out all the different things that we've got going on. I said before that we were going to have a dark cast and that it was going to be about the Hall of Lame. That is something that is on the back burner for now. We were supposed to record that yesterday. We ended up taking too much time to figure out some of the Discord stuff. Then we were supposed to record it today and it ended up being not good for everybody. So we're not going to have an opportunity to do that during WrestleMania week. That's for sure, because we're going to have a lot of the WrestleMania stuff. So we do have the Wrestling with the Past episode, if you didn't go back and check that out. But the next time you're going to be hearing from us is going to be most likely the NXT Stand and Deliver predictions podcast, probably on Tuesday night. We might go live for that. I don't know. It'd be kind of fun to go live and just do that. But then again, if it's, 1 a.m, I don't think anybody's really necessarily going to be around for live predictions on that front. We'll see. If you're interested in us going live, let me know. We could try to go live for all these different things. Then we're probably going to be doing our predictions for WrestleMania on like Wednesday afternoon, I'm assuming. Maybe Thursday afternoon, depending on how that all works out. And we got WrestleMania. This is going to be a crazy week, as it normally is. So my brain's going to be fried. I'm going to try to take some time this weekend to decompress a little bit and, preemptively make that a little bit easier for myself. We'll see how that works. Especially because every single time that I say that, I end up like doing more work than I did at the very beginning. But it is what it is. And I am what I am. And this was what the podcast was. So drop your comments below and stay tuned. Make sure you show your support on all of the different things you can see on the link tree at amangotree.com. Follow me at Tony Mango on most of those. And there's different things that you click on. It'll be on Fanboys Anonymous and such. And I don't know anything else to say. So adios for now. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for all your support. And I'll see you soon. This has been another Smark Out moment. And I'm being counted out.